to another episode. Today we're going to be talking about Roc Nation Sports. And the reason I wanted to talk about that is with the whole Yan Diomande saga, there's been a lot of chatter on social media with regards to them deciding where he goes, what his decision is going to be, and why he's going to PSG, if that is happening. And there's a lot of still to do with RB Leipzig. But I want to bring Jay, my friend and sports agent, on to talk a little bit about Roc Nation. Who are they? How long they've been in the game for? And what it's like working with them. So with that, Jay, welcome.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so just give us a kind of an overview because I believe Roc Nation Sports is new. I don't know how many players. I know they have a few NFL players. So yeah, if you just want to give us a kind of an overview in terms of what you know about Roc Nation Sports and what your experience has been with them, that'd be great.
Yeah, Roc Nation's kind of been around for a while. I know they just kind of got more into I would say the whole sports world space, maybe like the last 10, give or take 12, 14 years. Don't know the specific time per se, but they're considered one of the biggest sports entertainment firms, I would say, in the world. You have Wasserman, you have Octagon, you have Clutch Sports, obviously, that is headed up with Rich Paul. You have Excel Management, right? And then obviously you have Roc Nation, and that's kind of uh, transferred from music with Jay Z running the show to also adding sports in it. I never really had a direct relationship with them. We've went after some of the same players. I would say back in the day, Dwayne Bacon out of Florida State was one of the players who ended up signing with Roc Nation when it came down to myself, another agency, and then obviously Roc Nation. Um, but when it comes to the bigger players, the CAAs, the WMEs, the Excel Managements, Wassermans, Octagon, and again, Roc Nation's right there in the mix as they cover a lot of sports, including baseball and football, both football American and then obviously football FIFA, and the list kind of goes on and on and on. And then obviously they have their entertainment division as well. They do a lot. They throw their weight around as rightfully so. They're a billion-dollar sports entertainment company. So yeah, it's definitely one of the most powerful agencies out there for sure.
So in terms of, because what my understanding is that they are very US centric in terms of how they approach in terms of their dealings with their players, recruitment, signing, and leveraging for them. Now, with the soccer world or the football, whatever we want to call it, for this show we're going to call it football because that's what we kind of focus on. Is that it is I guess a new venture because in Europe generally not many players are with Roc Nation Sports, and there's a player that signed recently. He's a 19-year-old signed with them. Now there is some kind of legal wranglings between his former agency and signing with Roc Nation Sports, so that's still not kind of resolved. But what would you expect them to kind of do for the player in terms of negotiating with clubs, negotiating with deals? Is it a player centric first, or is it like a career first? What's the main focus, in, you would say, from your experience?
I don't know specifically their main focus. I could say, the aspect of an agent's job is, to maximize a player's potential on and off the court, on and off the field, as much as they possibly can, right? That's contract negotiations with teams. That's potential endorsement deals. That's potential marketing sponsorship opportunities, business ventures as well, and particularly this specific player. When we're talking about football, not 100% sure. I think it really comes down to each individual. Um, what I do know about a lot of the bigger agencies, they do prioritize, certain players, right? The top dogs get all the attention, partially because they're gonna be doing a lot of stuff, outside of just the soccer space. There's events that they go to, right? There are endorsement opportunities that they're signing and basically have obligations even with that. So when you're talking about the higher level players, and usually those bigger agencies are focused on those higher level players. They're focusing on maximizing those players' earnings so they can get paid. Right now, you do have some agencies, and I'm not saying Rock Nation is not one of those, that are a little bit more career path driven in regards to thinking outside the box, the traditional norm of, hey, let's just get this person a contract, let's get this person a shoe deal, and call it a day. They do look towards the future. They do help set up foundations or nonprofits or whatever the case may be. Again, I haven't really had too much dealings with Rock Nation to kind of give you a definitive answer on, kind of like what their ultimate goals are for each individual player. But I can say the following, and again, this is not about Rock Nation, and I'm not going to mention any specific agencies. There's always been a rumor of thumb within the bigger players, as far as the bigger sports entertainment firms, where they kind of almost map out like how long can we really retain this client before they end up firing us to go somewhere else, right? Because it's a business at the end of the day, especially if you're coming out of college. If you're coming up from, within a club itself, they will invest money, and with them investing money, they want to make sure that their IRR is, you know, coming back in return as well before they get let go. And that's partially just because a lot of the sports agencies kind of move like, almost like collegiate sports does, like the bigger programs where they'll over recruit a player, like they can bring in an All American, McDonald's All American, and then the following season that they're recruiting, they're they will try to bring in somebody that might be even better than the McDonald's All American that they've already currently have on the roster. So again, I'm not saying Rock Nation is like that, but I will say there are a lot of bigger agencies that are like that, where they're really not fully player career driven on and off the field. They're how much money can we make before before this client lets us go, or if the client gets hurt, or the organization club is over the player, or something of that nature. So they look at it. A lot of sports agencies look at it as purely a business. They do look at a lot of athletes from a statistical number. I'm not saying that that's Rock Nation. I couldn't tell you. But there's being in this industry since 2012, the big boys, certain big boys for sure, look at each player, no matter what sport it is, as a statistical number more than, hey, let's really build up the character of the player. Let's really build up their brand. Let's get them the best deals possible. Let's put them on the best club possible where it benefits everybody. It's a win-win. Most of the times they do look at them like, hey, before we get fired, potentially how many years will we be with this player, and how much money we can make, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, a bit about background on this deal right now is that the player, is a highly touted prospect. To use the U.S. terms, he's sort of like a collegiate athlete. Now, he's 19. Now, he's currently with a club, RB Leipzig, which is owned by Red Bull, and they are astute in terms of the way they run their business. They're known for getting players at a very younger age, let's just say in the 16, 17, 18 age group. And then once they get to like 19, 20, when there's kind of a lot of hype behind them, they kind of look at selling them. So they have made millions over the years where they get a player for almost peanuts and then selling them for 40, 50, 60 million. Now, this player that they're looking at moving right now, you're talking about over 110 to 120 million dollars, 100 million pounds. So looking about 130 to 135 million dollars. So huge money involved here. And then I've heard talk about a contract around 300,000 a week, right? So you're looking at a big deal, especially for a 19-year-old, right? This is a lot of money. Now, one thing I think that where there is a perception, as you mentioned, there is obviously, some agency will be looking after themselves. But I do believe that agencies they may tend to look out for the athlete as well, because obviously there's always going to be a bias on one side or the other, where agents are always out for themselves. So, um, what good can an agency do, or what benefits do they bring versus if the player decided to have no agent, for example?
You know, I know that's been kind of transpiring over like the last probably 6 to 10 years, where, and I think it's more so kind of depending on the sport, where some athletes feel like, hey, I don't need an agent, or I can hire my dad or my uncle or my grandma or somebody like that. Uh, that's fine, to an extent, but the problem is that the lack of um, knowledge of what really transpires behind closed doors. Um, when you're hiring an agent, the whole aspect is you're hiring somebody that not just has the connections, but really knows how to move the needle. They know what really happens behind closed doors. They know what those conversations are like. Um, they know how to move players, right? So if you're looking at a player that could be a potential good prospect. They may need a top agent that has super deep connections to kind of push them over the hump, right? You can even have a top prospect type player, that, for the most part, may not even need, a high profile agent, but at the same time, you still need people to really know the ins and outs of the industry. The sports and entertainment space, it's very, very rigged and shady. There's a lot of agents that take advantage of other people. And again, by no means am I talking about anybody from Rock Nation or anything of that nature, but there's a lot of agents that they'll double dip on, commissions. They don't really fully have the best interests at heart of the player. And believe it or not, some agents are heavily connected to clubs. And I'm not just talking about football clubs. I'm talking about basketball clubs and, everything else across the board, right? So it really comes down to the agent itself, the individual. You might have some agent that's the perfect saint, with some of these bigger agencies. Then you might have some agents that are just, the devil at the end of the day. The the biggest flaw that I would say in the industry is athletes forget that the agent works for them, not the other way around. And the reason why that's important is because players have to be able to speak up and kind of let their agent, their representation know exactly what they're looking for and seeking. Um, but if you do have an agent that's pretty selfish, or if you have an agent that's more so leaning towards the club side than the player side, it can cause a conflict of interest, right? But at the same time, if you have an agent that has a big time agency behind them, like a big time name behind them, they can dictate and control certain situations. And we've seen it in transfer windows in football. We've seen it in the NFL. We've seen it with the NBA. We've seen it, hell, even with the MLB, where because they're represented by this person coming from this agency, they're throwing their muscles behind it, right? And it can disrupt the organization. It can turn people off. It can jack some stuff up. At the end of the day, there's a kind of changing subjects a tad. There's a semi crisis going on between the Lakers and LeBron James's representation, right? Where both sides feel like they got messed up and screwed over at the end of the day. So, for myself, and when it comes to representation, it's all about making sure that the players come in first. You also still want to slightly do right by the club as well. And the reason why I say slightly is because at the end of the day, your client comes first. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're maintaining, ethical behavior. You're negotiating. The biggest thing is negotiating in clear mind and good faith. And unfortunately, sometimes it just doesn't happen. Where not only the club can get screwed over, but even the actual client themselves. So, um, unfortunately, when it comes to the sports world and young athletes, especially teenagers, they can get taken advantage of a lot. We've seen it, on ESPN with the 30 for 30s, where athletes are going broke and people, again, agents are taking advantage of them, kicking it to their financial advisor friends or whatever the case may be. So the industry is there needs to be a lot more cleaning up with the industry. There needs to be a little bit more people with better souls, because there's a lot of money involved. You're talking about 300,000 pounds for a 19-year-old kid a week. That's more money than some people see in a 5 year time frame. As far as just working regular day jobs. So, because money is going up, salaries are getting bigger. No matter what sport it is, people's eyes tend to get a little bit bigger and a little bit more greedy, to the point where, again, finding a good agent that knows how to work the room but not working the room against you is always going to be the biggest key.
Yeah, I guess what you're saying that it's like almost these three pillars, right? You have the pillar of the club, whoever is the one looking to get the player. Then you have the individual player themselves, and then you have the agency, which is, I guess, the intermediary between the two. Now, obviously, it's just nature, right? They're more likely going to have a bias towards one side versus the other side. I'm going to try and fix my light here because the light keeps blinking, and I'm not sure if it's the lighting in the room that's flickering here or what. I don't see it, but the camera's picking it up, so I'm going to try and bump this light up a bit here. So hopefully, there's less of that flickering. But as it goes, I think that so you're saying, so you're kind of supporting on the club side, then obviously the players come and go, but the relationship with the club most likely will stay. So the agent kind of has to play that middle ground and kind of balance between the two. But I would say that so in your and again, we've kind of moved on specifically about Roc Nation and Roc Nation Sports, and we're kind of more talking about generically about agency and sports now. The lights are flickering, but okay. But overall, I think that when you look at sports agency, then instead of focusing on negative, because all the fans are always going to pick up the negative, especially if the player picks a club against yours and it's kind of linked to the agent. What positives does an agent bring to a player and working with them and a club as well?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, there's a lot of negative things when it comes to the agency space, and that just kind of stems from people moving the wrong way. Um, when you're dealing with like the proper agent, you're dealing with somebody with integrity. You're dealing with somebody that is going to put that client first and understand that they work for the client. They seek out opportunities that's unheard of, right? They really help mold the player, not just from a financial end, but even as a human being, right? Athletes are getting younger and younger when they're turning pro. um, Football, NFL used to be you had to be a certain age and a certain class because of, you know, uh, going to the NFL, men's body is a certain way, right? They got grown men's body. So they want you to be a certain age. But now there's almost loopholes where 20-year-olds are going to the NFL. Maybe they graduated early from high school, they get to college, they're really 17, 18, 19, and then boom, all of a sudden, because they spent 3 years in college, they're eligible to go to the pros, right? But when you're talking about really managing a player, you got to seek out the best for the player all around, on and off the field, from financial to make sure that they're financially capable of managing money. Because unfortunately, so many young athletes blow their money um, within months of receiving it. So when we're talking about the football player who's 19 that is potentially negotiating this deal with Liverpool. He's 19, getting 300K a week. That's insane, right?
Uh,
What are you gonna?
just want to caveat. So I don't think Liverpool's paying that, but Paris Saint-Germain are
Okay,
they're looking at potentially 300, and that's why he's probably going to go to them because there's huge money on the table. Obviously, all these
yeah,
are alleged. They're all alleged. They're all rumors. So just to clarify that, there's no fact right now, but this is the numbers that's been thrown around.
I bet regardless alleged if it's accurate. I mean that those are big checks, man. Those are huge checks, and again, having the right person in your corner, setting them up for life. Like the person who was representing Allen Iverson, kudos to you. You know, he saw they basically saw what AI was going through on and off the court during his tenure with the Philadelphia 76ers, and make sure to lock in his shoe deal in a trust where he couldn't receive or touch a certain part of that money until he hit, I think, age 40 or 42 or something like that, right? So after Allen Iverson retired, financially he struggled, right? And then boom, he hit the certain age where it unlocked, I think that was like 50, 75 or 100 million, something like that. I can't remember. But that's an agent really looking out, for the best of that player. There's a Dominican baseball player that I think his contract runs into like 2050 or 2040 something. And he hasn't played Major League Baseball for like the last
Was it Bobby Believer?
something
I know
like
he's
that.
Bobby
Yeah.
something, and every 1st of July he gets
Yep.
1.1.3 million
Yep.
until it's
100%.
2032. Yeah. So
So,
I think
but
I think he's from the 90s. So yeah,
yeah, and that's but see that's an agent who's smart. That's an agent that's really looking after the client, right? In some regards, it may feel like you're babysitting some athletes, and it really kind of just depends on, who that athlete is, right? But when you're talking about taking care or managing a player, you're really taking care of somebody. So you want to be able to take care of them as if they're your brother, sister, son, daughter, uh, and hopefully you don't take advantage of your own kids,
yeah.
right? But it does happen, But it's setting up the player for success, and not just within the respectable sport, but even outside of that, because a lot of times when these athletes retire, they go broke and they go broke quickly. Now, I will, because we were talking about football, I will say it is very interesting how you hear more NFL or NBA players going broke after retirement than you do actual football players. You don't really hear that too much, and I'm not saying that they don't, right? But what I'm saying is that again, every sport is different. Every representation, every sport is different. Baseball is completely different from basketball. Basketball is completely different from the NFL. The NFL is completely different from football, FIFA, right? But your job is to do the job, and that's to serve that athlete to the best of your ability. Uh, you know, Whatever it is that they need and whatever that you can foresee that may be a hindrance for their future, financial stability. So, it really comes down to the individual, to be honest. Because like I said again, there's just to know that you can make hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars as an agent, not even playing the sport, people can get real greedy pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think as I'm kind of summarizing or processing would be a better word in terms of what you're saying is that a good agent can, will facilitate for the player both as a advisor, as a friend, as almost a personal coach, right? A coach on and off the field. The other aspect, I think, if a coach also if an agent is smart as well, if they have I guess, a lifetime deal with that player, and that player is doing commercials in their 40s, 50s. So, for example, let's just use, I'm going to use a football figure here, David Beckham, right? He is still, in adverts today, right? He's still, a TV celebrity, a TV person, right? You could add the likes of, if we're talking American sports, like Tom Brady. Now he's done with his NFL career, but now his contract he signed with Fox was more than he ever earned as an NFL player. So if his agent was good to him over that period of time, that agent's still cashing in over that period of time, and it grows with them, and it kind of shows as a mutual benefit, right? And you kind of grow together. And I think what happens, and it's both with the athletes and with the agents, if you're going after a quick cash grab, you're like, okay, I can get in and get out quick, and I make my money. What you then face the deal of potential issues, you might make, let's just say, what was the agent fee, 10%, right? pros?
Depending on the sport, depends on the sport. I can't speak for FIFA. I know football. I think you're max at 4%. No, it's like 3 or 4%. WNBA you're max at 5. NBA you're max at 4. Unfortunately, MLB has no regulations, so but most people only charge like 2 to 3% just because those contracts are insane as it is. I mean, you're gonna make millions of dollars off of some of those baseball contracts.
So, it's like if you was getting 4% of 100,000, you're getting your 4,000, right? A week, for example, right? Now, if that player in 10 years' time, well, no, not 10 years, because the player's career is really not that long, but in 5 years, if the player like, is earning, 500,000, that 4,000 has gone up, right? And it's almost then passive at that point because most of the bridges you need to do for that player is already built, and it's most likely contract renewals and renegotiations versus building new bridges for a new talent that you brought in because now you've started from scratch. So it does kind of show that as a player has to keep their career and their trajectory on track. An agent can be smart as well, just as well, and like no, this player in 2 to 3 years could be potentially seen as passive income because all I have to do is just renegotiate a few deals and up that by 10-20%, and they're good to go. And at the same time, I'm free to go and get some new talent versus I went in quick and out. Um, the next kind of obviously talk is with an agent. Obviously, how are they linked to players? How do they find players? Because we've mentioned, I know we spoke about this before, but the call quality was really bad. And unfortunately, this call has me flickering like a ghost. And so hopefully this will get published. But so yeah, so tell us how an agent finds a player, right?
Um, Connections, relationships that have been built over a period of time, and then depending on who it is and what agency that they're with, it's just the
So
name.
so let me just get a scenario. We have an 18-year-old prospect, right? And they don't have no agency, right? They just out of the blue, they just come out of nowhere. Uh, how do they get interactive with agents? Do agents contact them? I'm not going to talk about unknowns and that. I'm just going to, there's a known commodity. All of a sudden they're known. How does the process begin?
I mean, I'll touch on a little bit of both, right? If you're an athlete, you're reaching out to an agent, chances are you're probably not that good. Now, if you're just coming from a unique situation, like for example, we'll stick with FIFA, right? You might get a kid that's coming out of Senegal or a kid coming out of Pakistan that people just don't even know, right? Because most of the times, these big time clubs they're signing younger players quickly. I think Messi signed at 14, 15, right? So if once you hit that 17, 18, 19 mark, if you're not with a big time club in Europe, then you're kind of really flying underneath the radar. But that doesn't mean that you're terrible. But it's just one of those things where if you have to reach out to an agent, you're either in a bad situation or you are terrible. If you're a good player, people, especially in this day and age of 2026, there's social media everywhere, right? So social media is a really huge commodity, but it's also building those relationships that you build over a period of time. Like when I first got into the industry in 2012, 2013, I didn't know anybody. Hell, I barely even knew my own self, right? So when you start to go to the various different events, shaking hands, kissing babies, rubbing elbows, you start to build contacts, right? Just like everyday life. Um, then you start to build contacts with amateur coaches, grade school level. They'll contact you. Hey, Yusuf, I got this kid. I think you really need to check out. That's typically kind of like that pathway. Now, if you're an agent with a bigger firm, like a bigger agency, if you're a agent from WME or CAA or Excel or Wazzer, that just comes with the territory, right? Everybody and their grandma in the sports world knows Rock Nation. If you don't know who Rock Nation is, you're probably living underneath a rock itself. They're just too big. They've produced some of the biggest names in music. They represent some of the biggest names in sports. And it's equivalent to like Clutch Sports. Everybody knows Clutch Sports. So if Clutch Sports comes knocking at your door, chances are there's a 98% chance you're gonna answer that door just because it's Clutch Sports. But here's the kicker: that doesn't mean that agency or that agent is the best situation for you either. Uh, I always try to tell players, man, go somewhere where people want you, and not just want you for to eliminate the competition. I'll switch over real quick to like Nike. Nike signs a lot of athletes, but they're not really signing athletes because they really want to sign a lot of these athletes. They sign them to eliminate the competition from Adidas or Puma or Under Armour, stuff like that. So you don't want to just go with an agency just because of the name, or the agent because of the name, because that doesn't mean that's going to benefit you as an individual. Roc Nation, let's be honest, they're not a soccer agency like that. Yeah, they may represent FIFA players, which is great, but they're not a football agency like that. So that may not suit, the next up and coming star. And there's a reason why they don't represent a lot of the big time names, because they're still growing, they're still building, they're trying to get there. If the young guy that you were talking about came to me like, hey, would you represent me? No, because one, I don't even hold a license for FIFA, and two, I wouldn't even know what to do in that space, right? It wouldn't make any sense. Um,
So
so it's really comes down to your connections, your relationships. Again, from the grassroots level to the amateur level to even the professional level, and kind of keeping your name out there, your face out there, staying relevant. Um, even for myself, it took a couple years, couple years off, but now we're back. We're revamping the agency, and because I kept on going to the Final Four and staying around, connecting with people on social media. Now I'm back, and people are starting to send their players our way again, and again it's just, oh, Jay, you're back. Okay, cool. Let's rock and roll. But I've already built those relationships over the last 14 years.
okay, just to kind of loop back on the player here. The player's name is Yan Diomande, and he actually is one of those outliners because he was playing in the US, not even MLS, right? So 2 years ago, I think he was in the USPL. I think that's the name of the league. It's a lower league in the US. Got moved to forgot the trajectory, but he ended up in Europe. So within a space of 2 years, he went from basically an unknown player in the US to now being valued over 100 something million. So that's the outline that you're talking about, where no one knows about, and all of a sudden, the agencies were picking him up at far later on than in the 14, 15 years. And as you mentioned, with this, when it comes to soccer, the agency is crazy because, like, there's a player at Liverpool. His name's Josh Abe. He's 15, and he is going to look to sign his scholarship agreement. So this is not even the first professional contract. This is your kind of like your high school equivalent in the US, right? And clubs are offering 50,000 a week to a 15-year-old. So the money in
Yusuf, I think my parents put me in the wrong sport, man. Like, Jesus Christ.
yeah,
Oh man.
so it's definitely like right now the I don't think so in his case, and this is he was offered 50,000 a week, but the parents kept him at Liverpool because they believed that there would be a better path for him to turn pro at the club and get game time, because Liverpool signed another player that was 16-year old, and he's now making it to the first team, and that kind of showed the parents, like, you know what, I might not be getting that big money now, but in a year or two, we may be able to negotiate a bigger deal then, because we know he's going to get game time. So if he gets game time here, because of that scholarship contract, I think is 2 years or 3 years. So by the time he's 18, 19, and to renegotiate, we know then we can negotiate for far bigger bucks, and then it's going to be, because it's not going to be potential anymore. Now he's going to be like he's proven it at this level. So we can kind of see that. So I do want to kind of bring this to a close because, as I mentioned, there is a bit of technical difficulties with this Casper the Ghost flickering the lights over here. And But definitely would like to kind of have follow up where we go a bit more deep dive in terms of agency and recruitment, how that works, and and a bit more in terms of what happens during a player movement, what happens during contract negotiations, all that type of stuff. Because we always hear about from a player side or a club side, but we don't really hear from an agent side. So it'd be very interesting to dig deep on that. So thanks for your time, Jay, and we'll look to
Appreciate
speak
you.
again.
Okay, brother. I appreciate